oh, we're gonna set sail to get over here. Cool. This city, I had written a harbor. I had written a couple of things that I could kind of reach into, so you guys could start sailing. But the port you were heading to didn't exist. Guess what? There's a dragon turtle now. Ooh, deal with the dragon turtle.
Yeah.
But
And then we magicked our way out of having to deal with the dragon turtle, and you're like, that's a good place to put a pin in it.
Hey, what if me and Captain Fancy Pants just gust the sails in that direction?
oh, yeah, that could work. Let's play this out for 10 turns.
Yeah.
Oh, after those 10 turns are over, you guys see the harbor on the horizon. Yeah, let's put a pin in it tonight. We'll start this kid tomorrow.
Welcome to Take the Damage podcast by Unfortunate Ones. I'm Sav,
I'm Nix.
And I'm Graythorn.
and today's topic is 5.
5 no-hook campaigns.
Hey, we've talked about that recently. I feel like, take it away, Gray.
No hook campaigns. The best campaign you can have, where you just put your players in a place, tell them they're there for a thing, and then watch them do everything that you didn't expect them to do.
I love it. Like I wish it sold better. People want that hook. People want an adventure. People want epic. I wish it sold better. I do have one thing that I always leave posted on my off days of a no hook campaign, but like it just doesn't sell. But I love it.
That's
I would,
a shame.
Yeah, I would want to play in a game like that. Where like, hey, find your own adventure.
Yeah.
Move around, do stuff, look
Yeah.
for things.
Yeah. It's because we've talked about it a little bit with like how I handle my Realm Watcher games. My Monster of the Week campaigns have so much world building and like minor continuities involved that that's how I like to play my actual games. And I got into the no hook campaign because I made a hook for my first campaign, and immediately the players took a left turn,
Yeah.
and that wasn't written for. And I'm like, you know what? Let's just see where this goes. And
Yeah.
it went places.
And it does go because your
Mhm.
players do find things to do.
Mhm.
Yeah, I almost wish my Saturday game didn't have a hook, because I would love to see where they just go and do things. And then like when I put something in front of them and they don't like it, cool, go do something else. It's fine.
I wouldn't even call it a no hook campaign. It's just the campaign doesn't start with any bait. There are plenty of hooks.
that's the hook.
Yeah, there are
there's
plenty
no
of hooks
direction.
everywhere else.
Oh yeah, wait.
And
So
you
you
just gotta
have
get your players to bait themselves.
you have
Hey,
you have quest hooks, but not a campaign hook.
Yeah, there you go.
That's when we say no hook campaign, we mean the initial hook, the call to action.
Yeah.
Why are we coming together as a party to do whatever it is that we are doing? Because like that would be like the campaign hook. But of course, there's always hooks. I played in one a no hook campaign where we kind of just started playing in our friend's world. I don't really have a Meathead. Meathead's a good name for him. My brother's trainer.
Yeah.
He's a personal trainer, so Meathead's kind of a funny diss.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyways,
I would call him Mr. Olympian.
yeah, okay. Anyways, yeah, it was his world, his homebrew system, and he just put us in the world, and then we just started doing stuff until a campaign started happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think that's absolutely fine. Actually, I have a great campaign running. On that note, actually, it's my couples campaign,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a no hook campaign, where it's just like, hey, you guys are here. You're going to this place. Do whatever you want. And they are doing whatever they want to the degree where we were going to skip the travel to get to this place. I created this whole world. We're not even in the world. We're just on the boat, and
Still?
we're having a whole campaign about it. Yeah, we're only on day 2 of the 14-day travel.
Oh
Jesus.
my God.
I love it. I love every second of it.
That's hilarious.
I love that game.
It's funny because, like, I'm wondering how far away, like, what, in your guys' mind, the delineation of what makes it a no-hook campaign is the fact that there isn't, like, a through line to the campaign. It isn't like there's a
Not even
you
not a
guys
through
are
line.
doing this thing, and once you do it, it's essentially campaign over. Is that what you mean by no hook campaign?
No. What I mean is, okay, so as an example, G&G, right? You guys are in Colorado for the purpose of taking on the 103rd. And there was that whole backstory that led to like why you guys were here and why you want to take on the 103rd, your experience with them, even your guys' backstories, that in that unique way that we did it, where like you guys had a little bit of play and a lot of it was tied to the 103rd fucking you guys over.
Sure.
So like that was the hook. The no hook campaign, the other side of it would be like, okay, we're starting the game. You guys are whatever type of party you want to be, whether you guys are thieves or mercenaries or settlers or whatever you guys want to be, it doesn't matter. You need to make that decision. But beyond that, so, you guys chose gang. Cool. Okay, so Clinton, Botten, and Lucky, you guys are in a gang. You just got to Colorado. You are in a saloon. What are you doing?
Okay.
You're just in the world.
Okay.
You're in the world. What are you doing? You have this much money. What do you guys want to be doing? Well, let's find work. Okay, find work. You guys, we want to build a homestead. Let's build a homestead. You guys want to explore the town to see what kind of towns are in Colorado. Okay, explore the towns. Like literally, you guys, I'm not telling you to or hinting at or having you guys do anything. And then you guys could just go from nothing to starting to play and doing whatever you guys want to do. So there's no call to action in the beginning of the campaign. You are just placed somewhere.
My question, or the reason why I said that, because I when Gray said, at least in the beginning here, like, oh, my players are here, and then they're going to do this thing.
Mm.
What level is that thing? Like, what would you then separate? Like, do you have an initial reason for your characters doing something? Or is it like what Saab said, which is just like, they're here, what do you guys want to do?
So in my first thing, it was like, in my first campaign, it was going to be like, hey, you guys all wound up in the same place and you guys met up together to take on a bounty job.
Sure.
This is your bounty. You can go do it. And it's usually like it's a simple thing.
Okay.
It's a simple thing that you can just do. It's like a starter quest, if anything.
Okay, so like a quick hook.
Yeah.
A quick hook starter quest.
There's a reason for them to be there and be together, but then after that thing is over, if they decide that there's something else more interesting 2 towns down,
yeah,
they could just go and do it. There's not like a set like, here's the evil, go kill the evil or something like that. Like in my second freeform campaign, I gave them all their own personal quests to justify them being in the area.
Sure.
And after they're done with that, which all the personal quests are in the same place, they can do whatever they want. Like, oh, now you guys are all friends and know each other.
Sure.
Is there anything interesting that you see, and you guys can just go and do it? So there's no main plot point or storyline for the beginning of the game.
I like the idea of starting off a no hook campaign with a quick hook.
Yes.
Because another distinction, because just to further elaborate
Sure.
on the question you were asking earlier, there's another type of hook that I use pretty often, which I would call a soft hook, which would be like, okay, same situation. You guys are a gang, and you guys don't have a lot of money. You just got to Colorado, and you want to establish yourself in Colorado and become a successful gang. So now there's a soft, always in the back of your head, aim towards success.
There's like a
but
direction.
that doesn't
There's a
mean
motivation.
that doesn't mean necessarily anything. It's not a specific direction. It's just a thing to have in your in the back of your head the whole time, so that you don't stop being a gang. The campaign is you're a gang. The soft hook is you're trying to be successful. But like what you do within the world to be that, if you're a thieves guild in a fantasy setting and you want to be a successful thieves guild, maybe I give you a little bit where it's like you have a bar, the 3 of you have a bar, and you're trying to make a very prominent thieves guild go. What's step 1? You're sitting in the bar, You have no jobs or anything. You have nothing listed. You've not set up at all yet. You just have the bar and you want to be successful. So that would be a soft hook.
Yeah, because I think taken out of context of what the rest of the game was, but I think like the prologue to G&G was a lot like that, which is we're a gang, we're here. All of our concern is not necessarily dealing with the 103rd, which is again what the main thing, but it was just trying to acquire money.
So I would call that a soft hook because the first chapter of that campaign, there was a hook for the campaign in general. The first chapter of that campaign, though, I would call a soft hook, where it's like ramping up to be able to do the hook. So you guys get to Colorado and you got to get on your feet. It was a soft hook of getting on your feet, which meant getting money, getting guns, getting allies. Yeah. I would call that more like a soft hook rather than no hook.
Because I'm curious as to, I'm pretty sure I know how you guys would define it, but the very first game that I remember running was being so new to all of the stuff where for my players, I randomly generated sheets.
Yeah.
And then the players picked the
it's like Lord's Fall, right?
No. This is before that. This was with.
Yeah, it wouldn't be me then.
Glasses Rescuer. I don't know if you know who I'm talking about. We did a couple boat trips. He was the one that dove into the water to get my glasses a couple times.
Sure.
A couple times.
Almost every single trip I go on
Nix
the water,
is bad at glasses.
My glasses will fly off my body in a multitude of different ways.
You know, there are things you could attach to them to keep them on.
You know, sometimes you just got to act like a dog person. And when somebody says jump in the water, you jump in the water.
Somebody get this guy gilded.
Also, when nobody says jump in the water and there's just water and you jump in the water.
Yeah.
Then you almost
loosely
drown.
with your glasses.
And that's a whole different story. And you need another friend to rescue you.
Oh, unrelated. There's a very clear sound in session 9 that I had a real giggle with editing. I heard your ring fall.
Oh. That's funny. Because it fell and I was like, well, I got to deal with that later. I'm not getting that now.
Anyways, the campaign generated sheets.
The first campaign that I got, again, all generated, randomly given to the players. Everyone was new to the concept or to D&D. And what I did for the game was something attacked the city that all of these players live in.
Yeah.
None of the players knew none of the players were supposed to have known each other. They could if they wanted to.
That is literally how I'm doing session 1 tomorrow for my new game.
Yeah, and then it crashed in. The players then meet the thing that's attacking, and they essentially form their party by having a common enemy. And then it was like, I think it was after defeating the thing, they went to go look for what motivated the thing to attack.
Yeah.
So there was like, but that was what started the campaign or the game. I think it was supposed to be a campaign, but it only got past like 2 or 3 games. But in general, there was no like through line or anything. The characters didn't even know each other.
Well, hold on. So that sounds like just kind of what I'm doing tomorrow and what we talked about off cam. Were you the DM?
Yeah.
Did you know the origins of the monster?
Yes.
And did those origins lead to a campaign?
It led to a thing. It wasn't like as soon as they find the origins of where this came from and they went to it and dealt with it, it was kind of case closed, wrapped up. And then the players at that point, it was if the players wanted to keep playing, they could do more stuff in the world.
Okay, so that sounds more like the now coined term quick hook, like Gray was saying. The reason why I asked those questions is you could do that beginning. It's what I'm going to be doing tomorrow, where it is basically non-disclosed hook, but it is still a hook. So my players are kind of similarly starting where one of them owns a bar and is tending the bar. One of them is recently, like last couple of weeks, become a frequent customer in the bar. So they're going to be in the bar drinking and somewhat familiar with the owner, but not like friends. And then the third one is going to be arriving at the bar. This is kind of fun, backstory stuff. arriving at the bar because someone told them that the owner of the bar has information that they want. And then I reached out to the player that's the owner of the bar and was like, hey, here's some information you have. I'm not saying someone might come asking for it tomorrow, but anyways, and then once they're all together, I'm going to allow a little bit of role playing, and the moment it gets awkward or stale or whatever, because they're kind of people that don't know each other and don't have a reason to know each other, boom, something attacks the town. And then they figure out what attacks the town. And not necessarily tracing the origins of that, though if they start going on that, I'm not going to delineate away from it. They can if they want to. But if they just solve the problem and then go back to life as normal, that's a good thing, because someone who is tracking that thing is going to come and place the adventure hook in front of them for the actual campaign. So it starts off with them not in the hook, but there still is a hook to the campaign, and they're aware of what the campaign is. So they're aware of the hook, but it hasn't been in-game presented to them. But I would still call that a hook. And this is like a full hook for an actual campaign. In this case, it sounds like your thing was kind of like Gray's thing was like a quick hook, which is like, hey, start here as an excuse to get to know each other, and then do whatever you want in the world. So then it becomes that no hook world.
I think if I was to modify that and redo that again today with the concept of making it more freeform, would just be, it's not, because in my mind, it wouldn't even necessarily be a hook. It would just be the excuse of how the party got together.
Yeah.
Instead of having it like, oh, you guys are old chums, whatever. You guys knew each other in fucking grade school. And you decided to take sword fighting and magic lessons and whatever.
Sure.
And you guys are here, and then a thing happens, or whatever. It would be like, I think I do like the concept of like, oh, this is just the town that you grew up in. Or you're visiting or trade, walking through. This thing happens. You happen to be a somewhat capable fighter. Here's the thing presented in front of you, and then just kind of after they defeat it, it's like, all right, now what do you guys want to do? And then from that point, it would be up to the players.
Essentially a no-hook campaign, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be like, oh, do the players, are they going to try to seek where this thing came from?
Yeah.
Or they're not going to care.
Do they want to do something else?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think us three specifically, if we could find a DM to DM for us, would love a no-hook campaign.
Oh, yeah.
If we're going to have like a long... like, oh, we have nothing going on, let's continue that other campaign. It would just be one where we exist in the world, because our love often comes from just existing within the world, and we don't necessarily care about it being so mission-driven or, I mean, honestly, even narrative-driven. We make it narrative-driven ourselves as players, the three of us. I think we would exist perfectly fine in a no-hook campaign where we would just... there's not a hook, but a responsibility for us to stick together. And then beyond that, yeah, we just find our own way and exist within the world. We all love each other's world building. So just existing within the world would be cool.
I agree with you. I think that we could easily play that as like our group. I think I've talked about it before in one of our other episodes. I do lean a little bit more towards liking hero fantasy. So,
but you could still do that in the no-hook campaign. You could absolutely still do that.
You could still do it for sure. I have a tendency to write from, and I would enjoy also playing in a space where there is like an overarching hook, or there is like kind of like a thing that's like a thing that you're trying to do.
Yeah, I'm not saying it would be like your ideal campaign. I'm saying you would do very well for it. I would have a
blast in it.
Yeah,
I would have a blast in like a completely free form.
What I would love. It's really hard to do with strangers. I don't know that I could ever do it with strangers. Maybe one day. But what I would love would be a 2-part session 0 for a free-form no-hook campaign, which would be part 1 session 0. Okay, where are we? What are we doing? What kind of world is it? What kind of party composition do we want? Blah, blah, blah. Part 2 session 0, a fully meta conversation about the characters. Because guess what? the three of you are, I'll just say the two of you. I just keep using three because I'm trying to make a player party. But the two of you, Gray and Nix, your characters are friends, your best friends. Let's have an open conversation. You guys would probably know each other's backstories. What are each other's backstories?
Sure.
Talk about it. What kind of relationship would you guys have? What arcs have existed within your guys' relationship up to the point of the start of the campaign, so that when we get started in the campaign, you guys are already established as friends, and then we can just exist within the world. You guys know each other, you understand each other, blah, 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 blah.
Sure.
It's really hard to do no-hook campaigns without Gray's pitch of a quick hook or a quick mission to start off,
Yeah.
because with strangers, everybody always wants to meet in-game.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to. I feel like we did somewhat well with G&G establishing, especially because everybody sat at the table and watched everybody's 10-minute backstory session. But also we all know each other and blah, 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 blah. There was so much that went into that.
Yeah, we're all friends.
Yeah. So we didn't even do the whole talking about. Well, we did to a degree, actually, talking about how everybody knew each other, how everybody got along, blah, blah, blah.
To a degree, but it wasn't like an extended conversation.
Yeah. But like beyond that, every campaign I've ever ran or been in, everybody meets in session one. And it's really hard to do the no-hook campaign when you have everybody meeting because there is just the reality of like the narrative doesn't make sense, because why would we be together? There's a responsibility to be together, but why are we narratively together?
Yeah.
In my most recent freeform campaign, I gave each player. I like to do, this is your. I like to get my characters to make their stuff, and then I give them a thing to go and be in a place, and then I intentionally wrote 3 of them into a party together. So when they started playing, you know how you like to say everyone likes to be on the first game?
Yeah.
When they started playing, they already knew each other because I made them know each other, but they haven't done any of that on themselves.
Sure.
So they had to carry into the game immediately acting like they're friends or coworkers, which
it works
surprisingly okay.
Yeah, no, it does work. It absolutely works. What you don't get from it, you get a lot of like with more responsible players. Absolutely, you could do that. That's a lot of how G&G went as well. Like, Bill, would I know that about you? Blah blah blah. You get a lot of that of like, would I know this, or how much do I know about this, or blah blah blah. And that's fine. It's a totally fine way to do it, especially if you want to do the no-hook campaign thing. It's a totally fine way of starting players off already knowing each other. So that's a totally, absolutely reasonable way to do it. I would just love to run a game where you actually know each other.
Yeah. Like everyone comes into the first game as they've been together for at least a bit.
Yeah.
They know what each other is, what each other's about, what they're capable of, what their temperaments are.
Mm-hmm. Because then the reason why I think that would be important is because let's say Nix's character respects Gray's character, but doesn't like Gray's character. And you have that kind of a little bit contentious, but both of you respect each other enough to stick together and blah, blah, blah. You could do that if you knew stuff about each other. But if you just force them into a party and say you guys are friends and you know each other, then like you start off with that almost being overly friendly. Oh, we're supposed to be friends, right? So I will be friendly to these people. And then you find out they have a shitty personality and you're like, oh, I wouldn't have been friends with them, but I might have been in a party with them. And that has to happen over time rather than being able to do that from the get. So I just think it'd be really interesting for a no-hook campaign where you start together to have a session 0 or part of the session 0 where you kind of like, hey, just meta at each other for a bit.
Yeah.
You know how each other fights. You know how each other acts. You know how each other speaks. You know things about their background, blah, blah, blah. Some of the campfire moments will have already happened.
I've seen stuff where people also do like, depending on how big your party is, well, there's like those groups there are groups within the party that know each other.
Absolutely.
So it's like if you have 4 people, 2 two of them
Yeah.
and the two other two, like they both know each other and you're meeting each other at the beginning of the campaign, but there's at least some level of like that history and that knowing each other.
I played in the game when I was trying to when I jumped in to start playing. I wanted to learn as a player what it feels like to jump in to start playing. So I played for a bit first in like mini campaigns, and one of them, I asked the group. I was like, "Hey, this doesn't need to be a thing, but I would love for it to be a thing," and we could work out who would be comfortable with it. But I would love to be someone's sidekick. That was my character. Intentionally was a sidekick. So like the person who said yes, she was playing an orc or a half orc. I think full orc. And I was playing a goblin. So it was like big green and little green.
Yeah.
And then immediately I was like, hey, just so you know, my character looks to you as the leader. You're the one with the background and being a ship captain and whatnot. So my character looks to you as the leader of our group, so to speak, or our pair. And my character is my character has very much sidekick vibes to your character being the hero of the story. I also had a speech written where if my character went down, I was going to ask my DM of like, hey, I can't be healed. I'm dying. I get it. But can I have a speech? Because I had a speech about like being like, you were the best. I would have always fought for you. All of that shit. I think I based the voice off of Dr. Nefarious from Ratchet and Clank.
I think you'd mentioned that, yeah, when you talked about this before.
Yeah. But yeah, we had a little bit of that. I think we had a nice thing as the group. I love in sessions, it's so hard to cultivate this. But I love in session 0 where people come together without an idea of a character and then create their characters and party composition together. Because it allows for some of those bonds and whatnot to be created. And this game had that. So I knew of this other player's backstory and whatnot and was able to attach myself as a sidekick to that player. It's really hard to get a group of strangers to be willing to do that. Strangers, like 90% of the time, at least in my experience, and I've been doing this professionally for a while, are like, yeah, I joined your campaign because I have this character I want to play.
Yeah.
And like, kind of like the mishap that happened with G&G where I was like, hey guys, don't make players.
Yeah.
Or don't make characters because we're going to set the tone and there's a interesting, unique thing that I'm doing with character backgrounds in this game. So don't make characters, but one person didn't get that memo. And so they made a whole character and it didn't fit into the group very well.
Well, it was we could do part of it. Like there was like a mechanical side of it that we could build, right? And then it was like, don't make your backstories. It was like, I think that was the call.
No, you didn't. I don't even think we did character sheets yet. It was part of session 0. We did the background thing first because you guys didn't have character sheets to roll on.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't even have character sheets to roll on.
Right.
It was all luck checks for your background.
Yeah,
it was entirely luck checks for your background. And then my experience with strangers online, they all come with characters. Some of them come with multiple characters and like are willing to adapt it. My group tomorrow is great.
Yeah.
They were like, hey, I have a backstory, but there's so many things that could be adapted into your world, blah, blah, blah. Is this character okay? Does this character fit? And if so, how do we adapt it? And that to me was like the best version of coming to my table with a character. But like, I really wish people would be interested in my campaigns and not just seeing my campaign as the best fit of all of the listings they've seen for their character. Because I would love for people to cultivate their characters for my campaigns. I know that's controversial and like a lot of people think like, oh, your character should be your character no matter what, and it doesn't matter the campaign, and the campaign should somehow adapt around it. That's just not my style. My style is like, hey, here's the campaign. What kind of character would you want to make that would fit into this campaign?
Sure. Also, I mean, like you said, the thing that motivated you to like kind of want to do this is that like you want the players to interact with the other players, And like you build your character with the other players that you're playing with. So it's not yes, the campaign would motivate some
It's just part of it.
decisions, but mostly it's the other people that are at this table, how are you doing this?
I would love to cultivate that. Like, 1, your character's written for this campaign. 2, your character's written for this party. 3, your character's like written for specifically the composition of the party as well. So like, it's really hard when you have a pre-made character to do that, but I want you to fit into the campaign and I want you to fit into the party.
I think what makes that harder, at least with in your position, is I can only imagine that most of the people that are on start playing games, the reason why you're on there, if I was to assume, is just like you've had an interest in D&D, and like you want to play D&D, you want to play TTRPGs.
Mostly experienced players that I've come across, but sure.
Yeah, but I can just imagine that it's like, let's say you do have some level of information. You would have to have some level of information for what I'm saying, which is like, I kind of want to play this thing. I kind of want to play this whatever. And so, yeah, you go and search up, like you said, what is the closest thing to something that I might be interested in.
Yeah, where my character fits, or the thing I've been playing with in my head fits in.
Yeah.
I totally get it.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people like you that have just a backlog of characters that they've always wanted to play that they've never been able to fit somewhere.
Well, I mean, that backlog of characters for me was generated off of the Otis of what Realm Watchers was.
Yes.
Like, I generated those characters because Realm Watchers concept was like, oh, you could just make an assortment of characters, and I just so happen to like having a lot of mechanical fun.
Yeah.
But that doesn't...
I don't think you wrote backgrounds for them.
No.
At all.
Also, like, I think if I was to start a brand new game, like a brand new thing with somebody, or like play a brand new game, I don't think I would approach it that way. I wouldn't look at that backlog and be like, oh, which one of these people can I bring into this game? It would be more of, oh, what's the game we're playing?
I get a lot of like, this is my one character, and if we can't fit it, I'm not joining your campaign. And it's like it puts you in such an awkward position of like, well, like, I want you in my campaign, but there's no there's no tabaxi in my world.
Yeah.
So like, I guess we could write it in, and like, how much do you do that? And then like, even worse is when people write in characters of, I swear that one of the biggest, like the most prominent flaw that people write into characters and then people bring to tables, is like, oh, my character's a loner. And it's like, well, but this is a party game. Like,
I think it's, I think it's a very common trope.
Also distrusting. That's another really common flaw, is literally just the word like distrust or hard to trust or slow to trust. And it's like, I get it. It's such a common flaw. It makes sense. I get why you would put that in. And it's so like, especially because all backgrounds are trauma dumps, by the way. All of them.
Yeah.
So like, I get it, where it's like, oh, all of these traumatic things happen to you, and now you're hard to trust, or you're slow to trust people, blah blah. And it's like, but also you're bringing that into a situation where you have to trust people. Like, you like, why would you write that? There's also just like that aspect that I think people don't think about when they write, which is like that inherent like, oh, well, this is my character and this is what they do. But especially when you're talking pre-session 0, it's like, well, you wrote that though. Just don't write down that path. Just a random anecdote to bitch about an IP in the world. Halo 5. And then they're like, oh, what if Cortana's the bad guy? And then they made it make sense. And it's like, yeah, I get it. But also, like, why did you write that? Like, you made it make sense. You made a good story out of it. You made there be perfectly good reasons for it. But also, nobody wanted that story. You wrote this. Why did you write this? And like, my character had a traumatic background, and they don't trust people, and they're kind of a loner. It's like, cool. It makes sense. Your story makes sense. Your narrative makes sense. I get it. But also, you wrote this. And what you wrote is not cohesive with the player party. why did you write this? I don't understand.
Yeah. I don't know.
It looks like you have a thought over there, Gray.
No, I'm just thinking how off topic we are.
Oh yeah, I was gonna,
Pretty
I was gonna
off
try to
topic.
steer us
But,
back too.
Shit, maybe I did have a thought and I lost it trying to be funny. I mean, that could, sure, that sucks at the start, but if the player can make it work, it could be a whole arc on their own.
It can absolutely, and I've seen it happen. As long as the player's willing to arc, pretty much any background works.
Mhm.
To be honest, but I feel like you get away from a lot of those things when you have that session 0 allowing for party composition to be made collaboratively, and then trying to drag that back to our thing. Having a no hook campaign, I feel like becomes way more doable when you get to have that party composition session 0, because it makes it really easy to as a table you get to talk about, above the table you get to talk about why you're together, why you are friends, how does it make sense, and like someone might, you have no idea what your character is going to be, and then someone pitches the idea of like, oh, my character is really, what if my character is like kind of aggressive and evil? And then someone at the table is like, I don't know that our characters would be friends with that character. And I'm like, okay, well, what if they're maybe just not evil, but like a little chaotic? Okay, maybe that fits a little bit better. And so like now there's an excuse where like, okay, I could be friends with that. And then so you like the idea of the no hook campaign is easier to accomplish because you have a pre-written reason why everybody is together, rather than the DM just saying you guys are together and there's no hook. Exist within the world, have fun.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, I can see that.
That's all speculative too. I don't know because I've never started a campaign that way.
I never enforced it, but my second freeform campaign, I had 5 players at the start, and I told them, like, guys, work together a little bit to make your characters. Don't be too silly with it, right? Don't be like the one odd man out who does the dumb shit because you're just not a good fit for the campaign, and ended up still doing that. Made some memes.
Inevitable.
It made a funny joke that we have all the time whenever we play. Ended up in one guy suicide bombing another guy and creating an endless river of blood flowing out of a bridge.
It absolutely can make good times. It absolutely can make for good times and good moments, but especially if you're trying to tell a more serious campaign.
Well, I'm never trying to tell a more serious campaign. I'm telling them whatever's happening where they are.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I think, I think,
and then I think we're also kind of really different in another regard, is where if you want the players to come together and have a composition that works, that will allow them to go forward in the hookless campaign. Me personally, if I have 3 people who are obligate carnivores and one guy who really needs to fight for justice, to me it's interesting.
Yeah,
and it
it
makes the presenting them, the small quest hooks here and there, a little more interesting, because it's like how are they going to handle it when one guy wants to handle things the goodest way possible.
You like the player on player conflicts.
Yeah. I like the interpersonal conflicts a bit, because it does create interesting narratives, especially when like one of them tries to stand for a point.
Sure.
And then the other ones have to be brought over to their side, or vice versa.
Sure. Well, also, I imagine the extreme end of that would also be okay in your games. And also you play with people that you're more familiar with, which is, I imagine you are totally fine with just meat grinding until you get to a party composition. As in, like, you got 3 guys doing one thing and another one doing something different, and if they all turn and kill that player, and then your player has to write a new character, and that new character fits in a little better, then so be it.
That I've said that. I'm like, hey,
I think you
you
are.
guys seen that scene in Office Space? I won't stop you.
Yeah.
All right. If he's the printer, you know what to do.
Yeah, exactly. I think your willingness to meat grinder makes it pretty okay for anything to happen.
Yeah, I'm very big on consequence, whether it's for the characters or the player.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and you play with people that you're more familiar with, so there's a leniency that like the table understands those things from you.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes sense. Totally. Loot table?
Oh, sure. Once we get back, I got a thing to ask you guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Come on, everybody. Let's get hyped.
Let's go
go.
and roll.
What a dumb
On the
lyric.
loot
Roll on the
table.
table.
Let's go and see
Yeah.
who our sponsors will be.
Yeah.
Come on. Let's go.
Let's go roll on the loot
What
table.
dumbasses we are. All right. Today's sponsor. Crit Call.
Ding ding. Wake up. It's the first of the month and it's time to restart. Already.
You can't start the ad with ding ding, you fuck.
Yes, I can.
I tried to keep it together for like half a second.
I honestly felt okay. I was like, oh, that got me, but I'm fine. And then I saw you break out of the corner of my eye, and then I fucking died. All right. I'm going to move my mic away from me and let you go again. I'm so sorry. Moving mic now.
They're getting progressively harder to read. Not because of the ads themselves, but because of you guys.
I'm gonna try to stay focused. That was fucking crazy. You have to admit, that's
Ding,
fucking
ding.
wild.
Ding ding.
It was the, I mean, I know everybody
the
can't see
tone.
it, but it was the tone and then
Yes.
watching you do it with
was
your
the-
finger in the air.
finger in the
Ding,
air.
ding.
Ding ding.
Some fucking people, man.
All right. My mic's
I'm going to change it. Ding ding. Wake up. It's the first of the month and it's time to restock on your supplies and pay your bills. Pay your innkeeper, buy some rations, restock on spell components, you know, all the important things. Oh, and don't forget to check in with your local wizard to re-enchant that designer 5e sending eye stone or refill your prepaid skulls with sending. There goes your boost fund. And the worst part is that you haven't had a real adventuring gig for at least a couple months, but hey, it's hard living without some proper long-range communication. Sure, you can rely on a plain sending stone, but you can only use that thing once a day, and if you drop it, and you know you have, and will do it again, it can break, and that one guy who has the other link stone will end up carrying around a creepy-looking rock that does nothing for who knows how long before they even figure out how it works. Now, you can rely on just a scroll here or there, but you have a finite amount of messages you can send, and how are you going to have a proper convo with someone 2 towns down? Snail mail? Get real. Or better yet, get Crit Call. Crit Call is the essential communication service that has adventurers ready to throw away their sending scrolls and throw away their sending stones and rip up their sending scrolls. With crystal clear coverage and tailored to you payment plans, Crit Call ensures that you stay connected to all your allies and assets, leaving you ready for whatever challenge may lie ahead. Are you in a time skip or downtime vignette? Crit Call provides the option to pay as you go, so your monthly bill will be measured in silver instead of gold. Ensure your messages are never lost in the fog of war. Get Crit Call today.
Oh my god.
I love these.
I'm dying because
Ding ding.
honestly, no. Honestly,
I'm
sending
still
stones-
dying from ding ding.
Sending stones are garbage.
Sending stones, yeah.
Crit Call's innovation with being able to have, like you said, realm-wide coverage. Or what was nationwide? Realm-wide coverage?
Realm-wide coverage.
Realm-wide
Whatever fucking
coverage.
cares.
It's a fantastic service because you just don't get that. You know, with the spell scroll, you have to roll the check. You have to see whether or not you even have the intelligence to be able to send the message. Crit Call takes that away from you. Their product just works. You don't have to worry about your rolls, your skill checks. It's just a working service.
I would never put that into a D&D campaign.
It's way too good.
You gotta
way too
earn your
good.
you gotta fucking grind your fucking teeth down just to get Ascending Stone in
Oh,
my
you-
campaigns. With my Logi Magic campaigns, you gotta work your ass. You gotta sell your soul to a demon
I
just to
think
get
it's
Ascending Stone.
Why Ascending Stones are like, oh, you got 20 words and it works once a day. Cause fuck you.
Yeah. Cause fuck you.
Yeah. You
Look,
want to
hey.
send a message.
In almost all of my games, messenger birds are a thing. So like, yeah, you could send them a bird.
Oh,
It's gonna be a while before that message, as like a standard service. I mean, within any realm.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, or you could grind and get your Ascending Stones.
it's the craziest thing where like, oh yeah, you have access to essentially like god level magic. Where like, oh, you can ignite and it like half the plane on fire. I don't know what message is, but I think it's like a fucking 4th level spell or something.
Message
Like
is a cantrip.
Yep.
Sending is
Sending.
2nd level.
that. Oh, I thought it was much higher.
No.
Okay, never mind.
Message also, well, both of them. Message.
Sending is
Message
the one
is a
that's-
cantrip and has like a limited range of like 120 feet or something like
Sending
that.
is the one that is the long distance one, but still, 2nd level spell is still a fucking.
It's
if
still
you
a
need
thing.
To use that,
Yeah.
and it's also limited word count. That's the other great.
It
thing
might be
about-
1st level, which is even worse.
I also
so.
love that it's limited word count. I never tell anybody about it, but like people oftentimes will just start saying shit and on behind, because I play online, no one can see me. I don't do cameras. So on my screen as they're talking, I'm just counting on my fingers, and then when I get to 20, I'm just like, and that was your message. That was 20 words.
I mean,
Let's see how they respond.
it's again one of the other great things about Crit Call. It doesn't have a limited word. You could just keep talking.
Well, it's pay as you go, so you
yeah,
know
pay as you go.
you pay by word. It's tokens.
It's like old text messaging. Oh, you said 200 text? That's $300.
Never in a million years would I give that to my players. I'm gonna very early establish. So I love it. This is like a random thing that I came up with the first time that I ran the campaign that I'm starting tomorrow. I've played once before. I usually cultivate a new campaign every time I play a campaign, but you guys know I like more serious narratives, and the first time I ran this campaign, it was goofy. So I wanted to run it serious. So I posted it again, starting tomorrow. But something I do want to take from that first campaign is I had like Secret Service or more like FBI level characters. And then I'm calling them Queensmen, like Kingsmen.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're going to have immediately just a misnomer for the campaign that it's going to be high magic, and it's not. They're going to have the earrings where like there isn't a limit, and you can just, anybody with a matching earring you could just talk to.
Mhm.
And it's like, these guys are serious. All right, back to the topic. No hooks.
Oh.
You had a question.
Yes, but also fantastic job. That was really
Amazing.
Yeah. I was gonna say I'm curious as to like, because part of me feels like the concept of no hook campaigns is something that I think you need both a pretty experienced GM and pretty experienced players. Just
I'd
I
argue.
think the players probably less so because there's ways to counteract it. There's ways to kind of like,
Yeah, you can
help
cultivate that
build-
as a DM.
yeah, you help build your party to kind of do what you want. But I feel like you have to be a pretty experienced GM in order to run it.
Can
Just
I-
because,
Can I counter you?
sure, my only curiosity is,
pretty good counter.
yeah. I'm just saying
Sorry, go
that
ahead.
like you have to be able to either spend so much time building your world that you have the ability to be able to respond to your players kind of doing anything that they want, or you have to have that wittedness.
You're
be-
breaking down my counter pretty hard here.
or you have to either, it's three options. It's you build up your world so complex or like so competently that when your players want to do anything they can, and that in and of itself, to be able to understand how players are going to interact, you need to, in my mind, have some level of interaction,
Sure.
or else they'll hit a blind spot. Have enough experience where players are, what players kind of do, and in any given situation, you have a moment that you've played that you kind of can like pull from your ass and kind of change it up a little bit and be like, oh, this is a thing, or just kind of be quick enough to
Sure.
be when your players come up to anything, you just kind of on the spot, on the fly, just are here you go. Here's the thing.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely, for me, from my experience, drawn that ladder of just improv.
Yeah.
Improv is like my whole thing. So, like G&G, that first you mentioned that first one was kind of like soft hook or no hook, the first chapter of that game, and like I didn't make the town that you guys went to. I didn't make the people you spoke to. You guys made a whole campaign out of it, and I was just constantly on the spot improving everything that was happening and who was around you in the environment and blah 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 blah, story hooks, all of that shit. But I could do that because I'm experienced. My counter, which you broke down before I was able to get there. In a weird way, Lord's Fall was a no hook campaign. So there was a hook for the one shot that it started as, and there was a hook for the second session, which became Westward March. You went from a one shot to Westward March to a no hook campaign because we did the one shot and that was great. Then we wanted to continue, and you were like, "Well, how do we continue?" Oh, I guess Westward March. And
in
then,
order to handle
being able to continue, yeah,
well, also to be able to handle the amount of players that we had,
totally,
and people showing up and not showing up,
totally.
Yeah.
So then we did the Westward March mission, and then we fucked that so bad, and then at the end of fucking it so bad and getting kicked out of the group and blah blah blah, and just like literally being completely disbanded from everything that you had written so far. Off the back of that, we were like, "But we want to keep going."
Yeah.
And then you guys were like, "Cool," and then you were like, "Cool. What does that mean? What are you doing?" And then we went into a no hook campaign. So you were relatively inexperienced at the time, relatively.
No, I would say
as a DM at least. You've played a lot, but as a DM, relatively inexperienced.
Even playing was fairly limited. And
sure,
I did play I played a decent amount. I would definitely not call myself a new player or a new,
sure,
whatever. But it was probably only like my third or fourth session DMing, and we had that campaign that we ran with Ace.
Sure.
Or not we ran, but we played in. But like
relatively new.
Other examples that we've given as to playing the game where I was, again, some of the decisions I made as a DM. Now as a more experienced DM.
Well, that's what I was going to say is breaking down why you broke down my counter was you started talking about being able to improv and having a super well detailed world as ways to counteract a no hook campaign and keep it going. And I was like, oh, my whole example of you as an inexperienced DM running a no hook campaign is actually more to what you're speaking about, because we ran into a lot of problems of your world not having detail in it. And we ran into a lot of problems of you not having the improv skills yet. Like when we just teleported into the manor of the person's house, you were fine at first. And then the whole plan was to like, we caught you off guard as a group, entire player party, immediately just inside the house. And then you were like, oh, okay, what are you doing? And then I was trying to keep it in character where I was like, if we just keep bum rushing each room until the DM, because why wouldn't the Lord be here? It's his house. If we just keep moving, then your improv skills would have been fine and we would have accomplished our goals.
Yeah.
But we had a player at the table, it was actually Lucky, who kept asking you questions. And they were like, what's in this room? Describe this room to me. What is the paperwork? What is in the documents? Is there anything on this? And it was just like, it was so much overwhelming expectations of basically you having the layout to this place and you having the information that you were like, you know, guys, we're kind of already near midnight and this isn't a bad place to put a pin in it. And I don't have all of the answers that you guys are asking. So why don't we put a pin in it here and just end like 20 minutes earlier than we normally would anyways, so we're pretty close to the timeline, and then I'll do some prep, and then next week I'll have the answers you guys need, and I'll have a layout of the house and blah, 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 blah. So like in that instance, we ran up against the wall that was your improv level, improv skills at the time. And then oftentimes we laugh and joke on, and it's happened on the podcast in recent episodes, about you just throwing random encounters at us because we tried going to a town and you hadn't written the town. So once again, your world not being detailed enough. So like, as an inexperienced DM, I could see it being pretty hard for a no-hook campaign.
That's part of the reason why I brought it up is me being fairly inexperienced as a GM in Lord's Fall. It became a freeform campaign. It became a no-hook campaign. You guys were self-motivated enough as a group to just create your own drives and motivations, and I just kind of would put things in your way.
Yeah.
Or put things that you could dive into.
Totally.
And you guys are just like, okay, this is what we're doing now.
Yeah.
We're doing this now. Okay, cool. We're doing this now. Like, oh, this person needed an item. Cool. This person did this thing. Gray's character at one point got cursed by something. I don't remember what it was. Oh, the hag, I think.
No, you're Plague Knight, dude.
Oh, yeah, the Plague Knight cursed you. And then you guys are like, oh, I guess we have to deal with that. And so that became its own little adventure. But yes, that world was, because I had written out a bunch of stuff, all trash in the first episode or the first session. And then I was just like, I can't anticipate your guys' moves. So I'm just building the world floorboard by floorboard as you guys are kind of going through it. And it led to a lot of those kinds of things, which is like, oh, we're going to set sail to get over here. Cool. This city, I had written a harbor. I had written a couple of things that I could kind of reach into so you guys could start sailing. But the port you were heading to didn't exist. Guess what? There's a dragon turtle now. Ooh, deal with the dragon turtle.
Yeah.
But
and then we magicked our way out of having to deal with the dragon turtle, and you're like, that's a good place to put a pin in it.
Hey, what if me and Captain Fancy Pants just gusts the sails in that direction?
Oh, yeah, that could work. Let's play this out for 10 turns.
Yeah.
Oh, after those 10 turns are over, you guys see the harbor on the horizon. Yeah, let's put a pin in it tonight. We'll start this kid tomorrow.
So funny enough, and there's so many things that like I would not pose this as like a norm, but there's so many things in my life that have led me to inadvertently have improv skills. So like I DM'd multiple times a bunch of shit. All of Realm Watchers, all of the one shots that we did through COVID. So it's not like I was completely inexperienced, but G&G was my first big jump into a full-fledged campaign. But I've just had a lot of things in my life that have kind of led me to inadvertently have improv skills. And then on top of that, like, I intentionally make myself improv in the way, like, sometimes I'm doing prep, and I think prep is important, and I do a lot of prep. I probably do more prep than I should. But sometimes when I'm doing prep, I realize that I'm preparing for, like, contingencies and stuff, or I'm preparing for unimportant things or whatever, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop here. Even though I have the time and I'm into it and I'm in a good workflow, I'm like, I kind of force myself like, no, I rather improv this. I rather keep up on my improv skills. I rather have a natural thing occur. Like I'll find myself like, okay, so as an example, they're starting in a bar tomorrow, and like there's a lot of prep. I need to figure out how to get them to the bar, what's going to happen at the bar. I need to figure out where they're going from there, blah, blah, blah. And then I realized, like, I started writing who was in the bar, and I was like, no, don't do that. Improv that. Who's in the bar? We'll figure that out when we get there. So I'm also just constantly, like, intentionally placing that in. It's also just, like, you've commented on, like, in my youth, like, just being witty and things like that.
You've always been quick to an answer. Also,
me and you constantly, and I've done this, I have that same relationship that me and you have with multiple people where we like to bullshit, and we'll just have 10 minutes conversations that aren't real.
Yeah.
And it's just for no reason and going off.
It just goes wild.
Yeah, just absolutely going. I also find it funny to do that to my wife, where like for no reason, like I realize like I'll just start talking about something, and then I realize that it's going nowhere, and then I find it funny in my own stupid head, and so I'll just start going down the rabbit hole of a conversation, a one-way conversation where I'm explaining a story and the details just get weirder and weirder and make no sense and blah blah. Blah,
It
until
just
she
becomes absurd.
until
yeah.
she realizes that I'm being an idiot, and then I giggle to myself. So like, I don't know. That is just something about my life that's always led me to improv. Which when we got into our first campaign, I already kind of had that skill. But yeah, if you don't have that improv skill, it'd be really hard to run a no hook campaign. I could see that.
So, in general, I would like to know. I have something I want to say. It's not really any kind of like. It's not really a question necessarily.
Is it sexy?
It is a little sexy because I am rock hard now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, it just took you a while to get here.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes with those soft hooks, it takes a
Yeah.
while to really
Yeah, real
catch you. You know?
flaccid hooks get a lot. They need a lot of work to get a real stiff hook in there.
There's a pill for that.
What? Yeah. Also, mine hooks to the left a little, so it is what it is. But what I was going to say is part of, I think, the example that you gave, one of the examples you gave about you guys just kind of bum rushing that mansion.
Yeah.
And then not having any of that built. Part of that was I have my own hesitancy. I think even now, if I was to run a game again, I think I'd try to be a little looser with it. Because like you said, I like the improv and I like getting absurd with improv.
Sure.
And I like, because again, we have multiple times, me and you.
Well, you're also just way better at it now.
Yeah, well,
To be fair to your past self.
Sure, but like I've done it with your brother, I've done it with some of our other friends where we just kind of go off, and I've always liked that humor.
Yeah.
And I always like doing it because it just becomes absurd.
Yeah.
Part of that stops me is I think imparting that into D&D and being or into TTRPGs and GMing is I can be absurd when it's trying to be funny because nothing has to make sense.
Sure.
When that specific moment that happened, like I told you before, I spend an ungodly amount of time and energy and motivation building my stories in the world into a root, into the thing. And it just so happened to be the room the room that you'd be in. It's his office.
Yeah.
And that was when Lucky started going through his desk and his papers.
Yeah.
The part that stopped me is you guys never found this out or never got that far into that city that you were in. That city was ruled by a triad. That city had 3 different rulers. One of the rulers was ending their particular thing, and there was a vote coming up to like the next set of rulers. The guy who you were dealing with, he was the son of somebody who was trying to become one of these part of the triad. And so his papers and his documents, I had already kind of written a bunch of motivation, a bunch of history of how he places into the city. So I was afraid that in my improv, I wouldn't necessarily remember correctly, or 2, the stuff that I'd want to put into that paper, stuff into his documents, and how it would leach out into the rest of that world and into the rest of the stuff. I wanted to sit down with it because to me that was fun. To me, it was like, if instead of just improving what the document said and saying, it is these things, and with the concept that I'd kind of been playing around in my head and like what just kind of generates in that moment, I would have much rather, which is why I wanted the pin, I would just rather sit on it and go like, okay, how can I make this right out where it implicates this other person? And how do I drag it into this person? How do I make it so like it even sounds more like he was trying to conceal it? And even like, how would I can integrate cryptography into this, and I can integrate like he was trying to hide what he was saying, blah, blah, blah. Like, how do I make it so like, I can layer levels of mystery. I can layer levels of like, he's working with other groups and stuff like that. So like, that's how I have fun writing and implying or trying to put that writing into GMing where like, I think that's my battle of like my improv versus my personal take and enjoyment of writing.
Sure. I just thinking about an anecdote back to the couples campaign where they're 2 days onto the ship. I love improving myself into corners, and I feel like that would work out great in the no hook campaign. I just find it fun to like make myself uncomfortable.
Sure.
And like have to have an answer, and then maybe it leads to a big thing. They were on the ship, and they've taken on personas of people that had tickets for the ship, and then they're in their room figuring out what they're going to do. and then all of a sudden luggage arrived in their room. I was just like, fuck it, luggage arrives in their room. And so they're going through the luggage and they're like, what's in there? And I just improved a bunch of shit. And then one of the items that was in there, I just named very randomly, where it's like a glamour mirror or something like that. And then it's become very important to what's happening. Or it's been very important to their self-identity because it shows you your true self. They used it on, or like your perfect self. And they used it on, it like shows your best sides. And they used it on an NPC and it made her look like really beautiful. Like if you just captured her perfectly in the right light type thing. And then later one of them showed it, like looked in the mirror themselves and they're a changeling. And they're like, what do I see? And I was like, oh shit, what's a changeling look like? Like true form changeling. And then one of them was digging through the luggage and they were like, are there any like secret compartments or anything? And I was like, well, roll an investigation check. They rolled really high. And I was like, you actually do notice that the fabric's coming up on one end. And then they opened it up and they're like, I was like, oh, it looks like there's a sliding puzzle where there's like little, like as like they're like, there's like a bunch of like cubes of pieces of wood and they seem to move a little bit and jiggle. And then with your investigation, you see that one can be removed and the other ones can now slide around. It seems to be some type of puzzle. And they have maybe rolled like 10 times already trying to figure out this puzzle. And it's like a point of contention and frustration. And like for the first half of it, I have no idea what's in there. I have no idea. I've come up with an idea off the top of my head, just the improv of it, because I thought they were going to get it because I gave them advantage at one point. And I was like, what's in there? A key. I have no idea what that key opens. It'll be important, whatever it is, when they figure it out. But like, yeah, I don't know. I love saying things out loud that is like intriguing, and then I like having to on the spot figure out why it's important or epic or adventurous or whatever. I think in a no hook campaign where people are just wandering around, I think I would thrive as a DM. I think I would do wonderfully in that situation.
Sure. I'm wondering if I think part of my take on like the no hook thing and in this conversation and everything would be like, I think it's okay if you wanted to write, at least if I was to approach a no hook campaign right now, I think it would be okay to spend some amount of time to build out your world a little bit. But
Yeah.
I think
hook doesn't mean no world necessarily.
Sure, but I'm saying I wouldn't build it out to the same kind of degree that I did for Lord's Fall. I think I would be way less hesitant to just kind of rewrite anything I've already written.
Or just get to the port city and just start strewing bullshit about what's around us.
Sure, I'm just saying that like in Lord's Fall, I wrote all of it. Like what the ports looked like, how many ships were there, who was the port captain.
Yeah, too much prep.
But I'm just saying, because I like that. I like to write out a world in such a complex way, just because it's fun for me. It's fun for me to like, that's my challenge of like when I do world building, is I like to have all that stuff there. The thing is, I think in a no hook campaign, I think it's less important, and also it's probably more important that you do not let anything that you've pre-written stop you from in the moment having to kind of come up with a thing that's happening.
I find myself doing less prep because my improv rewrites things anyways.
Sure.
So why write it in the first place?
Yeah. Again, I personally, I like stories where I build those deep roots, just because again, it's me having fun.
There's such a big aspect that you enjoy from D&D, which is writing the world.
Yeah.
I totally get it.
Yeah.
I do a lot of world building shit too, so I absolutely totally get it.
Yeah.
But on the other side, at one point my players, the little orc girl that was cursed, wanted a place for her. I wanted them to explore the world rather than the city they were stuck in. So I was like, oh yeah, they can't help you here, but they told you they could help you in a place called the Twin Cities. I just made that up on the spot. And then slowly over time, through them asking questions, the city came to fruition. Why is it called the Twin Cities? Well, now I have to have a reason why it's called the Twin Cities. It can't just be called that. You know what I mean? So like I was like, oh, well, there's like 2 cities, but they're separated. Well, why are they separated? Well, one's the upper twin because it's more into the mountains, and one's lower because it's like down in the plains. Well, what are they separated by? Well, there's like a big ravine between them and bridges that go, and like now they're there. And it's a fascinating city, or at least I find it fascinating. But like it all came through just fucking my players have questions, and my favorite thing to do is answer players' questions. It just makes shit up.
No, I get it, and I think I could do that if that was my intention to begin with. Like,
yeah,
if I decided to run a game now, I think I would lean more in that direction, where kind of like I would ballpark kind of the world and like city, like the main points and stuff like that. But yeah, it would be call response. It would be my players are like, oh, this thing, and then I would just start saying stuff. Yeah, and then just kind of build things. And I think you kind of mentioned it before. Like, if my players decide to come back to this place, what was the name of the bartender? It was Bill. It's always been Bill. It's whatever you remember it as Tom before. Nope, it was Bill. It was Bill the whole time.
It was Bill the whole time. That's so common. I try as best I can to remember names, but fuck me, it's hard.
Yeah,
I've also gotten way better at forcing introductions because D&D players don't introduce themselves, and it's like people do that, and people introduce themselves in the real world to a degree.
Yeah,
depending on if it's just a shop owner, not necessarily, but like, yeah, you're gonna go talk to a nobleman. You'll probably get their name, and there's no reason why a nobleman would talk to a peasant without getting their name. Like, why am I talking? Who are you? Why am I talking to you? But it's so easy to not do that. And just...
Yeah. Any of this conversation spark anything with you, Gray?
No. But I did think of a new ad.
Perfect. That's what I like to hear.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think no hook campaigns are. I think it kind of depends on who you are, but I think anybody can approach it.
Well, I think you did nail something. I have enjoyed this second. It's also been more on topic this latter half of the conversation after your question of like how much does experience dig into it. I think that brought up a good point, which is like I get what you mean, and I think to run a no hook campaign, you either need to have improv skills, which you gain from experience, or world building, which also to a degree you gain from experience,
or just game time, having experience just playing. And so like it's not necessary, like again, it pulling from past experiences where it's not necessarily improv, it's like a mixture of it where it's like,
well, because encounters are the other hard thing. Talking about a no hook campaign, having the experience to know how often they should happen or when they should happen, and then what they are. So like me and Gray are really big into homebrew and homebrew creatures and things like that. And that 100% you need experience in the system with.
Yeah.
To be able to improv a fight, like, and not have it be overpowered or underpowered, that's actually like a skill within a system too. Like I wouldn't presume to know how to do that in Pathfinder.
Yeah.
So that's a skill within a system as well. And then even if you wanted to go on the other end of that, where you're not going to dig into homebrew, like that seems even more of a skill, even more experience driven and a skill to know that a young wormling is perfectly fit for your group. That'd be hard. Like if I had to do that with actual D&D creatures without Googling things constantly during my games, the idea of just introducing a pre-written creature in a random encounter in a no-hook campaign through improv, that'd be so hard to do. If you had to do that, Gray, with pre-written creatures, do you think you could do that?
Well, I don't know all that many pre-written creatures all that much.
That's kind of my point.
Yeah.
Right?
Only-
Like if I told you right now we are level 6 adventurers, there are 3 of us, and we're traveling through the woods in a moderately cold, snowy area, and then a creature steps out. Pre-written creature? Do you think you could nail that combat without fudging rolls?
I mean, if I had no access to sheets, then no.
That'd be so well. But even just knowing what creature to put in, because you're in that moment, that improv moment, what steps out? You could still go look up the sheet for it, but like what steps out and to know
Oh no.
what could be stepping out, that'd be fucking hard.
If I was in that situation, it'd be I would just see what level. If it was 5e, be like, oh, what level the characters? How many hit points do they have? Cool. Here's the dice class that you're fighting against.
Yeah, exactly.
It would be-
You just to homebrew it, and I could do that all day.
Yeah.
Or
So
like,
it's 1d8 plus 3. That's
Yeah.
what's hitting you. You're just
and
like,
I
cool.
improv that as well. Literally, I'd just be like, oh, this thing steps out. It has very long legs. It is a technically large creature, but the mass of the creature is actually quite small, and like 50% of this thing is legs. It is a tall, gangly creature with scales stretching across its body, and it seems to have snow on it, even though the snow around it and everywhere in the environment you're in melts immediately. It seems to not melt on the creature at all. So now you have a description of the character, and I know in my head, and I've already given the hint, that this creature is cold and probably has cold damage. And I just made that up right now. And I like knowing those things and then knowing where my party's at. It's like, yeah, I could ballpark a health pool. I could ballpark AC. I could ballpark damage output. But if I had to know an actual pre-written creature out of, like an off-the-shelf creature, no way in fuck. I could homebrew all day improv. I can't improv fucking.
No, I think you'd have to have some level of like really deep knowledge of sheets.
Yeah.
And like that's its own thing. That's like you.
But my point is, in either case, you have to be an experienced DM to be able to improv.
Oh, yeah.
To be able to improv, because either you have experience homebrewing or you have experience with the lore of D&D. Either way, that's so experience driven.
Those first like 4-8 sessions of Lord's Fall, if you were to ask me to just improv a like what I just did there, which is like a 1d8 plus 3, I don't think I'd be able to really competently with a decent health pool, decent hit rate, and maybe up an ability.
Yeah.
It's like that would be very hard.
I learned that through Realm Watchers because we just got
Yeah.
to create creatures every single session. So
Re-
like we got pretty decent at being able to just ballpark creature. I think Gray, you already kind of knew what you were doing, but
I helped develop that skill because I did a lot of like the Kobold Fight Club website.
Yeah.
I would use like monster a days
Mhm.
where people just like community written monsters, and I would just look at those.
well, that's partially how I learned the skill was just looking up. So like using calculators to look up what creatures would be
Yeah.
fitting for my party in prep. We're talking all prep here.
Yeah.
But this is where I learned the skill was just looking up creatures that were, all of the creatures that would be a good suited combat, and then averaging out their damage output, their AC, their health, blah, 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 things like that. And then slowly over time, I kind of just got the idea of what would be appropriate at level 8. And then we did level 4s, and I did the same thing. We did level 12s. I did the same thing. I don't think I did 16 or 20. But yeah, I like just that was learning the homebrew is something I developed over time. I don't read. So I never got used to like what character, like what name a creature. I don't know what CR it is or what it would be appropriate to.
I liked looking at like the sheets. I like looking at the artwork, and I like looking at like the stuff in the DMGs and all that stuff. But like fuck if I know what a werewolf CR is, what a cultist CR is,
or what party it would be appropriate to. Like for all I know, a werewolf is fine for lower level fighters or lower level classes, and like maybe anything between like level 2 and level 4 can fight a werewolf. For all I know, but also D&D's weird, and that might be a fucking 3 level 8s are gonna have a hard time with a werewolf. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, I have no clue.
I don't think a werewolf is that low.
I think werewolves are relatively
I think
high.
the
'cause-
were-rat is the lowest.
Yes.
It goes were-rat, then it goes
Were-bear,
werewolf,
were-boar.
were-tiger, were-bear, I think.
Yeah.
Actually curious. But yeah, like I said, for all the fuck I know, that's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
lower level, supernatural, mundane
Yeah,
creature.
I fucking
And also, it's just gonna kill them if they don't have silver, so or magic.
silver or magic. I mean, that's like one, as far as I'm aware, it's one of the big like delineations between the lower level stuff and the bigger level stuffs is like when everything has magical resistance or like cannot be damaged by non-magical whatever.
Oh, they have like 5 different condition resistances.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
was
that's when
close.
it gets crazy when it's like
So,
yes.
4 level 3 characters would be reasonable for a werewolf.
What's the CR?
3.
3? Okay,
Which
so
I
it is
believe
relatively low.
CR is supposed to be appropriate to 4 of
Yeah.
the CR rating. So 4 level 3 character. It's CR3, so 4 level 3 characters should be able to take on the werewolf. That was close, but
Because werewolves have the non-silver, not non-magical, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. And then it gets fucking Looney Tunes after like CR12 with damage immunities and resistances.
Oh
and
yeah, it gets like
legendary actions and like it gets fucking Looney Tunes.
oh yeah, it gets crazy. It's essentially one creature becomes a squad because you have 3 legendary actions that happen after every single round, and it just it becomes this whole thing. I would lose track of that all the time.
I did see a neat take on encounters online. This is totally off topic.
We're back to encounters. Yeah.
Which was like, say you want to have a I don't know, fucking name a creature, an orc. And the orc has a stat sheet. And you know that an orc is not sufficient to be fighting your players. You want it to be a king orc canonically, but it's not sufficient. They would absolutely murk an orc. So you would need 3 orcs, say, in order to match that level for your characters, for it to be a reasonable fight. You need 3 orcs. But this is a king orc. And a way to do that is add all of their health pools together, and then there's only 1 orc on the battlefield, but you play with like the action economy of the 3 different sheets.
Yeah.
And you roll 3 different initiatives, which really throws off your players. So it's like, oh, okay, Nyx, it's your turn. So the orc goes, does its thing. Nyx, it's your turn. Cool. The orc's going again. All right, it's your turn now, Gray. All right, the orc's going again. Oh, but
Yeah,
that's
that's
not
it.
the top of the round because it's going again. Is that an action surge? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like just a way to make a creature higher level is to just use the turn economy of however many there's supposed to
It's
be of it.
essentially treating it like legendary actions, but even more so. Because
Yeah.
if you're allowing for like movement and all these other things.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Cool. No, I think that's it.
anything else on No Hooks? Cool.
All right.
That was
well,
fun. I like
Yeah, I had a good time. Thank you for listening to Take the Damage podcast by Unfortunate Ones. I'm Sav. You can find my links in the description. You can find me over at startplaying.games. If you want me to run a game for you, feel free to reach out. I do take custom requests if you don't like anything that I have listed. And hopefully you're a longtime listener and know the type of games that I run.
Ding ding. I'm Nick.
Oh, fuck off.
The ding ding gets you, but the 5e the custom made 5e sending eye stone silence.
Dog.
I had
did
to move my
best to
microphone
look
away
from
and not
you
look at you.
with my face down to the ground so I didn't fuck you up. I was dying the whole time, dog.
Now he's complaining about
I
us
know,
not
right?
interrupting him.
Exactly.
All right, next time, full eye contact, full microphones. Deal with it.
Anyways, I'm Nick's. My link's in the description. Go follow him.
I'm Graythorn. I stream almost every Friday my game. Currently doing a game that has a very heavy story hook. Be getting back to no story hook soon. I do not take custom requests, but you can play if you want. Links in the description, all that stuff, good stuff.
Cool.
Sweet. Make sure
Please.
to like, subscribe, hit the bell, subscribe so that we could have
Yes.
better links. Also, subscribe so that we could have paid content on YouTube. But if you do want our paid content, being our pre and post shows, where we kind of just off the cuff talk about whatever we feel like talking about in a less formatted way, before and after our actual recording, you can find that content on our website or on our Patreon. Links will also be in the description. And thank you for listening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.